Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the dim light of a late autumn afternoon, the small town of Pine Hollow seemed untouched by time, only echoing secrets buried deep beneath its tranquil surface. Nestled between thick woods and the shimmering expanse of Lake Alder, the quaint streets, lined with century-old homes, were shadowed by the ever-looming mountains. A sense of stillness hung in the air, mingling with the faint scent of damp earth and decaying lavisa, perspective of peace overshadowed by an underlying current of tension. It was here, among the fallen leaves and rustling branches, that a mystery lingered, undisturbed for nearly a year. On the morning of October 14th, a discovery would upend this serene facade. Local residents, accustomed to the hum of daily life and community bonding, would soon be confronted with the harsh reminder that darkness can infiltrate even the most idyllic setting. As the sun began to set, the shadows deepened in the heart of the town. A gnarled oak tree, its branches stretching outward like skeletal fingers, stood sentinel over the vacant lot where the body of a 28-year-old woman had been found. Elena Torres. The air thickened with quiet dread. Whispers flitted through the town, cast like ripples in the lake. Every neighbor suddenly seemed to have an opinion. Every cafe became a meeting ground for idle speculation. Yet, beneath the layers of gossip lay the reality that would grip Pine Hollow. A woman's life cut short, families torn asunder, and a community left to grapple with the unsettling questions. Who was Elena Torres? And perhaps more haunting, who among them could have committed such an act? The victim. Elena Torres was a name that echoed softly through Pine Hollow, a melody tinged with nostalgia and heartache. Born and raised in this tight-knit community, she embodied the spirit of a town that both embraced and examined its residents closely. With deep brown eyes and a warm smile that lit up even the cloudiest of days, Elena was known for her infectious laughter and kindness that seemed to weave effortlessly into the lives of those around her. At 28, she was on the cusp of an exciting life. A recent graduate with a degree in environmental science, Elena had been working as a park ranger, advocating for the preservation of Lake Alder and its surrounding habitat. She often organized community events, bringing locals together for volunteer cleanups, nature walks, and educational workshops for children. To many, she was a beacon of positivity, a figure whose passion for the environment inspired others. But behind her vibrant demeanor lay a complexity, a vulnerability that only close friends could glimpse. Elena had faced her share of disappointments, failed relationships, unfulfilled dreams, and the recent loss of her beloved grandmother, whom she had cared for until her passing. The weight of grief often settled upon her shoulders like a heavy cloak, making her all the more determined to honor her grandmother's memory. On that fateful October day, Elena had been preparing for her latest community project, an initiative she hoped would strengthen the town's bond to nature. But suddenly, she became part of a tragic narrative that would reveal the darker aspects of her life. As investigators began to piece together her day-to-day existence, the idyllic image of a committed environmentalist would reveal more tangled threads than they ever anticipated. The crime scene. When the call came in to the Pine Hollow Police Department, it rattled through the thin walls of the station like a sudden clap of thunder. Two hikers, drawn by the promise of a peaceful morning walk along the trails that skirted the lake, had stumbled upon something jarring amidst the usual routine of natural body, lying motionless among the underbrush just off the trail. As Officer Mark Daniels arrived on the scene, the sun hung low, casting a golden hue over the vibrant autumn leaves. The serene beauty of the surroundings starkly contrasted with the grim reality of the discovery. Elena Torres was crumpled on the forest floor, her dark hair fanned out like a halo against the earth, her limbs arranged awkwardly as if she were merely resting. Yet there was no sense of peace here. The scene bore the heavy imprint of tragedy. Removing the hikers from the immediate vicinity, Officer Daniels carefully stepped closer, taking in every detail. No signs of struggle presented themselves at first glance. The crisp air was thick with the smell of fallen leaves and decay. Yet it seemed too still and eerie quiet, the area, with only the faint rustle of distant trees breaking the silence. Investigators quickly fanned out to safeguard the perimeter, while the coroner arrived to determine any initial forensic evidence that could lead them closer to understanding the circumstances of her death. Shadows danced as the afternoon light shifted, illuminating Elena's clothing, a dark jacket and jeans still unbothered by the forest floor. The juxtaposition of her vibrant ensemble against the grim tableau ignited questions. Had she been here willingly, or was she a victim of circumstance? As the scene was processed, haunting facts began to come to light. Elena's phone was missing, but the tattered remnants of her backpack lay within reach, suggesting she had not gone far from the trail. A knot tightened in Officer Daniels' stomach. What had she been doing here? And more unsettling, who could possibly want to harm her? The early investigation. As the sun set behind the horizon, the small town of Pine Hollow was plunged into uncertainty. News of Elena Torres' death spread rapidly, sending ripples of anxiety through the tightly woven fabric of the community. The Pine Hollow Police Department, previously a bastion of routine, sprung into action as investigators combed through the limited information available, grasping for threads that could unravel the mystery surrounding her untimely demise. Detective Sarah Lynn, a determined officer with a reputation for tenacity, spearheaded the investigation. Her dark, cascading hair framed a face illuminated by focus and resolve. Arriving at the station shortly after the body was discovered, she gathered her team, forming a command center of sorts. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, a stark reminder of the weight pressing down on them. "All right, we need to start with Elena's last known whereabouts," Sarah stated, flipping open her notepad. Her co-workers reported that she didn't show up for a scheduled hike with the local school on Friday. That was 2 days before her body was found. The team quickly began reaching out to friends, family, and co-workers, constructing a timeline of her last movements. Unraveling the details of her recent life revealed some startling discovery. There had been whispers of a complicated breakup just weeks prior, and that Elena had been seen arguing with an unknown figure at a local cafe just days before her disappearance. As witness statements poured in, an intricate web began to form the people she had interacted with, the places she had frequented, each detail potentially leading them closer. Meanwhile, canvassing the area near the crime scene revealed discarded items. A water bottle with an unfamiliar logo and a torn piece of fabric caught on a tree branch. Each clue could be pivotal. But with limited technology and time, it was up to the team to connect the dots before the trails went cold. Late that night, Sarah stared at the collected evidence, photographs of the crime scene, witness reports, and a map of Pine Hollow. Each image seemed to pulse with significance. The town she knew so well now. Determined to find justice for Elena, she braced herself for the uncertain journey ahead on that would delve deep into the complexities of love, conflict, and community ties. The dead ends, days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, hope waned in the quiet corridors of the Pine Hollow Police Department. Detective Sarah Lynn found herself confronting an unsettling reality. Leads that seemed promising initially began to dwindle, leaving her with a growing sense of urgency and frustration. Each interview conducted with friends, acquaintances, and even Elena's estranged family yielded little more than vague recollections and fragmented accounts that did little to tighten the noose around a credible suspect. The polarizing narrative of Elena's life began to solidify, but the echoes of uncertainty made it difficult to discern friend from potential foe. Witnesses who reported seeing her just days before her tragic end had distinct views on her personal affairs. Spoke of a toxic atmosphere surrounding her breakup, while another dismissed it as just young love's turbulence, insisting Elena had weathered far worse storms. One afternoon, Sarah found herself in the dimly lit break room, scanning through the mountain of paperwork that piled on her desk. The lingering scent of stale coffee matched her mood. A lead regarding the torn fabric found at the crime scene had momentarily brightened her spirit. But the trace evidence came back inconclusive, matching nothing in her databases. As the clock ticked incessantly, a new lead came to the forefront. A blurry security camera image from a nearby convenience store caught a glimpse of a woman who resembled Elena, arguing with a man at the pumps late one night. The grainy footage, however, did little to provide clarity, only deepened the shadows of doubt. Investigators sought to identify the man, only to learn he had vanished, leaving behind countless unanswered questions. The mounting frustration was palpable, echoing through the precinct as every avenue explored seemed to lead back to the beginning. Sarah felt the stark weight of inadequacy. A layer of guilt settled within her, thickening with frustration. What was she missing? As she scrutinized Elena's life, it became evident that the simple and idyllic image the town had painted was being upended. Their victim was enmeshed in a life rife with complexities she had not shared. The walls began to feel constricting, each flick erasing the early excitement of the investigation and replacing it with the grim reality of potential dead ends. But Detective Sarah Lynn knew that with every unwelcome pause, the truth still loomed, waiting for the right moment to resurface. A break in the case. It was a chillier morning, early November, when the persistent ringtone of Sarah's phone sliced through the air like the crack of dawn. Groggy yet alert, she answered, greeted by the voice of Officer Daniels, laced with excitement. Detective, you're going to want to get down to the station. We've just received some information that could shift everything. Sarah's pulse quickened as she hurriedly dressed, her mind racing with possibilities. She had spent countless hours combing through the evidence, feeding on the scraps of hope that lingered within a mountain of obscurity. The thought of a breakthrough lingered on the horizon like the first glimmer of daylight. Arriving at the station, Sarah moved quickly through the familiar corridors until she reached the evidence room, where Daniels awaited, his expression a mixture of urgency and fervor. We located a witness who saw Elena at the cafe on that fateful Friday evening. This witness has finally come forward with something new. As Sarah leaned closer, the witness, a quiet, anxious man in his late 20s, began to recount his narrative. He had been in a cafe, overhearing an argument between Elena and he didn't recognize. The tension in his voice grew thick as he described the man's aggressive demeanor. The words exchanged suffused with anger and desperation. He was furious, the witness stated. I thought it was just a regular breakup. But then there were threats, something about how she didn't understand what he was capable of. Those words thrummed in Sarah's ears, both alarming and electrifying. Fueled by urgency, the team rallied to track down this unidentified man, turning to surveillance footage from neighboring businesses. They flooded the small town with flyers, searching for anyone who might have seen or recognized him. Weeks of uncertainty transformed into a blurring flurry of adrenaline. As the pieces began to connect, Sarah felt momentum building, an undercurrent that breathed life into the investigation, just as the autumn air turned. And yet, with this glimmer of hope surfaced an unsettling feeling. With the promise of resolution came the anticipated threat of dark revelation. There remained much to uncover, but now, armed with the identification of this enigmatic man, the investigation would move forward, no longer teetering on the edge of uncertainty, but rather pressing toward the unknown. The suspect. As the leaves continued to fall, blanketing pine and hollow in a kaleidoscope of muted colors, the momentum of the investigation shifted to a growing urgency. A name had surfaced: Tom Ryder, a local handyman who frequented the cafe where Elena had been last seen. While his demeanor had registered as approachable to some, those who knew him hinted at a darker undercurrent, describing him as someone prone to outbursts of anger. Detective Sarah Lynn coordinated with Officer Daniels to locate Tom. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a turbulent past, multiple incidents that painted a troubling picture of an individual struggling with anger management. The man had been in and out of trouble, and whispers in the community hinted at volatile relationships. Elena was not the first connection Tom had that veered into the murky waters of hostility. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, the detectives arrived at Tom's residence, a modest home nestled on the outskirts of town. As they approached, Sarah's heart raced. It was now a matter of piecing together the final forces that led to that dreadful day. Knocking on the door, Sarah was met with a man who appeared in his late 30s, sporting a scruffy beard and sunken eyes. His nervous demeanor suggested he was all too aware of the reason for their visit. "Can I help you?" Tom stammered, a hint of defensiveness seeping into his tone. "Mr. Ryder, we need to ask you some questions about your interactions with Elena Torres," Sarah began, her voice steady yet firm. The ensuing conversation ebbed and flowed as Sarah intuitively parsed his reactions and scrutinized the scenes of each denial that fell from his lips. As the interview progressed, inconsistencies stood out, particularly surrounding his alibi for the evening in question. Tom claimed to have been home, but neighbors reported seeing him around the area that night. Every nervous shift, every pause in his speech became a clue. As Sarah walked away from the interview, the weight of suspicion hung like a low-hanging fog in the air. Tom Ryder was not just a name on a list anymore. He had become a person of interest, ensnared in a web of uncertainty and potential menace. The promise of confrontation or culpability lingered just beyond the horizon, compelling Sarah to unravel this complex tapestry of human relationships further. The trial. As winter set in, Pine Hollow remained gripped in a state of muted anticipation, the memories of Elena Torres' tragic fate hanging heavily over the town. With the arrest of Tom Ryder, the community had both exhaled in relief and recoiled in disbelief. The man once seen as an ordinary fixture in their lives now stood accused of a crime that shattered their sense of safety. The trial commenced in the town's small courthouse, an old brick building that housed years of justice and heartache. On a frigid January morning, the air buzzed with tension as townspeople packed the benches, their murmurs ricocheting off the wooden walls. They sought answers, attempting to reconcile the familiar face of Tom with the accusations that loomed like a dark shroud over their community. As Detective Sarah Lynn sat in the audience, her stomach knotted with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. She couldn't help but reflect on the months of relentless investigation. The prosecution's opening statements painted a grim picture. Elena had been a victim of a man who had spiraled into violence when confronted about their tumultuous interactions. The evidence pointed toward jealousy and rage, compounded by the circumstantial threads woven through Tom's past. Throughout the following days, the courtroom transformed into a battleground. Testimonies unfolded, revealing the layers of Elena's life, her passions, her kindness, and the complexity of her relationship. Fellow friends recounted the distress she had experienced in the wake of her breakup with Tom. And yet, the defense sought to craft a counter-narrative. We must remind ourselves that while the prosecution presents a compelling story, it is just that, a story, the defense attorney argued. They highlighted the absence of definitive evidence linking Tom to the crime, drawing attention to gaps in witness testimonies and the flimsy connections that bound him to that night. As the trial dragged on, Sarah felt the weight of the community's gaze upon her, their initial confidence in law enforcement wavering with each passing day. Seeming to cling to collective disbelief. Could this truly be the man responsible? Then came the closing arguments, as the defense meticulously laid out their reasoning, attempting to cast doubt on every assertion made by the prosecution. The fire in Sarah's gut burned, urging her to keep faith that truth would prevail despite the swirling uncertainties. The tension peaked as the jury retreated to deliberate, leaving the courtroom in a heavy silence, punctuated only by the hushed conversations among the spectators. Time dragged on as the community held its breath, the outcome poised to draw forth the kind of reckoning Pine Hollow had never anticipated. The aftermath. The verdict reverberated through the quiet streets of Pine Hollow like a long-awaited thunderstorm breaking over a parched earth. When the jurors returned with a unanimous decision guilty of second-degree murder, the courtroom erupted into a flurry of emotion. Relief, anger, and profound sorrow filled the air, collectively poured out by a community that had wrestled with their own demons in the wake of tragedy. As minutes turned into hours following the announcement, the sense of closure remained elusive. Though justice had been served, the reality of Elena's absence weighed heavily on the hearts of those who had known her. Flowers crowded the space near the lake where she once held her community events. The blooms were a bittersweet testament to the vibrant life cut short, memorialized by the very essence of the natural beauty she had cherished and fought to protect. Detective Sarah Lynn found herself standing at the edge of Lake Alder, a place that had witnessed the joy Elena brought to her loved ones. She reflected on the investigation, the twists and turns that had pulled her deep into the psyche of the community. There had been moments of apprehension, frustration, and occasional doubt as the narrative unfolded. Yet, amid the darkness, there were flickers of tenacity and courage, the unwavering pursuit of truth that kept the light alive. In the wake of the trial, support groups began to form within Pine Hollow, helping residents navigate the complex emotions surrounding violence and loss. The community rallied, intertwining their grief and hope as they established a new annual event in Elena's honor, a nature festival dedicated to environmental preservation. The goal was to engage and unite the town, reminding them of the beauty that remains even amidst tragedy. As winter melted into spring, Sarah felt the season shift, not only in the landscape, but within herself. Closure had crept in, mingling with the lingering scent of dampened earth and blossoming flowers, while bittersweet memories of Elena remained firmly rooted in the minds of those who loved. The scars of loss could never be erased, but they found solace in shared stories and support, each echoing the legacy of a woman who had a profound impact on her community, one that refused to forget. Pine Hollow would continue to thrive, transformed by tragedy, yet fortified by its resolve to cherish the very essence of life that Elena had championed. And for Sarah, the ongoing journey of short-lived but unwavering pursuits gave purpose, a reminder that even in times of heartbreak, the pursuit of justice and connection could bring forth new beginnings. Reflection. Standing by the tranquil waters of Lake Alder, a renewed sense of purpose washed over Sarah Lynn. The ripples lapped gently at the shore, a reminder of the fragility of life and the depth of human connection that had both blessed and cursed the tight-knit community of Pine Hollow. Reflecting on the months that had spiraled into an emotional odyssey, she thought of Elena Torres not just as a victim, but as a catalyst for change. In the face of darkness, the community had awakened to the complexities of humanity's nature. Residents who once nodded hello now fostered deeper connections through shared grief, embarking on journeys to uplift one another, even as they struggled to comprehend the loss. Just as spring brought blooming flowers, the quiet transformations forged from compassion and understanding emerged from the ashes of tragedy. Sarah's heart tightened as she recalled the faces of the townspeople attending the new festival in Elena's honor. Their laughter, mingling with memories of her spirit, echoed through the air. In chasing answers, Sarah had forged bonds with her community that went beyond professional duty. She'd become intertwined in lives where love flourished despite adversity, where resilience bloomed in whispered tales of the past. As she stared into the lake, she made a silent promise to honor Elena's legacy, to encourage the pursuit of justice, to advocate for the vulnerable, and to nurture the beauty that continued to thrive in the wake of heartache. And as the sun set behind the mountains, casting vibrant hues over the water, she felt the ripple of hope begin anew.